In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 techniques for keeping your feet warm in the cold. One of the challenges is when you go out camping in cold locations, whether it's snowy, winter, fall, spring, whatever it is, keeping your feet warm is a real challenge more than any other part of your body. The first tip that I have to give you is make sure that when you're setting up your tent, you actually keep the doors and windows open. Now this is totally counterintuitive because you might think, oh, I need to completely zip my tent up, seal this whole thing, and I'll stay warm. That is definitely something you don't want to do. Why is that? Because when you completely seal up your tent, whether it's single wall or double wall, and I'll get to that in a bit, by sealing up your tent, you're actually keeping the moisture in. So even though you keep the heat in, you actually keep the moisture in, which begins soaking the clothing that you have on, your sleeping bag, whether it's down or synthetic, and everything starts to get wet. So by the time you wake up in the morning, everything's coated and you're starting to go brrr, which causes your feet to get cold. The second tip that I'm going to give you when you're setting up your tent is make sure to place your tent out of the wind. Now when I went to Antarctica and skied to the South Pole, let me show you here. Oh, fudge. Keep filming. When I went to Antarctica and skied to the South Pole, I had no choice but to be in the wind. As you can see here, this is literally my camp where I was freezing in the wind nonstop, and that's just the part of the deal. But you don't want to do that. So whatever you do when you choose a tent location, make sure it's behind a rock, in a glen, a glade, wherever. Get out of the wind because that can make a huge difference in keeping your feet warm. Tip number 3, keep your door out of the wind if you can't keep your tent out of the wind. What do I mean by that? When you're placing your tent in a location, if you have to be in a windy location, make sure to set your door, this is my 3-season Hubba tent from MSR. I face the door away because that way, at least when I have to get out or mess around, I don't have all that cold air blowing in my tent, swirling around, which makes me cold and my feet cold on top of that. Number 4, use a low profile tent. Even though it's very tempting to use a beautiful big dome tent that has lots of space, that space also comes at a cost of you not being able to warm up that gap in between your body and the tent. Now, some people would suggest, hey, why don't you go with a complete bivvy? Bivvies are a great option. What is a bivvy? A bivvy is literally just a tube of nylon. I mean, they can be very expensive, that go over you and your sleeping bag. So the lower the profile of the tent in bad conditions, the warmer you will be because it takes less energy to warm up that tent. It stays out of the wind better and it's easier to place. And the 5th valuable tip of keeping your feet warm in cold conditions is use a double wall, meaning 2 walls instead of 1 wall tent. What does that actually mean, double wall versus single wall? Well, this tent here, when it's completely sealed up with its fly, this is what's called a single wall tent. A single wall tent will usually have some sort of mesh or no-seam mesh and then a rain fly over it. The mesh does not count as a wall, just the fly over this tent is the first wall. A double wall tent, in comparison, is a tent that has a complete nylon body to the tent that is relatively sealed, and then you put a complete rain fly or tarp over that tent to create 2 layers of nylon, Curlon, or whatever you're using. A double wall tent is monumentally warmer than a single wall tent. You would not go to Denali or somewhere extremely cold with a single wall tent because, well, you'll freeze. A double wall tent affords a lot of protection. So those are 5 tips. make sure to keep your doors and windows in your tent open. Position your tent out of the wind. If you can't do that, make sure at least your door is facing out of the wind. Choose a lower profile tent. And 5, use a double wall instead of a single wall tent. These tips and others are covered in my book, How to Keep Your Feet Warm in the Cold, where you'll learn over 100 tips of keeping your poor little tootsies from getting full cold or frostbite. My name is Aaron Linsdau. I'm a polar explorer and professional adventurer. Please check out links below in the description to all my books, including How to Keep Your Feet Warm in the Cold. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you can get more info like this.